Hello, everyone. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Fangirlz Assemble. I'm Fariha, and joining me today, all the way from Kentucky, Maddie and Kristan. How are you good ladies doing today?
Hi, guys.
Good.
So before we get rolling and introduce an awesome guest we have on today on the show, we just wanted to say go to instocktrades.com for all your collected editions needs. You can get all the Dark Horse, Image, Marvel, DC for up to 42% off, and also free shipping for more than $50. So with that out of the way, we just wanted to very quickly introduce our guest today, all the way from Houston, Texas, Terry Moore. How are you, Terry?
That's me. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thanks for having me here.
Glad we're so excited to have you, and we're a huge fan of your work here in the show. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So kind of just wanted to get started. So how did you start it in the comic books? What drew you? What inspired you to go into becoming a comic book creator?
Well, I grew up loving to draw cartoons. In high school, I was drawing Mad Magazine-like cartoons, trying to get my friends to laugh. I did that during class, and it was a lot of good memories. And then I didn't think about comics again for a long time, mostly because of the death of Gwen Stacy. I was like 21, and I had a delivery job. And I stopped to get a candy bar and a drink, and there was the comic with Spider-Man with Gwen Stacy and the fight with the Green Goblin. Mm-hmm. So I'm in my car, drinking the soda, reading the issue, and Gwen Stacy dies on the Brooklyn Bridge. I got so mad, I threw the comic out the window, and I didn't look at comics again for like 10 or 11 years. Honest.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't blame you. That's rough.
I was so mad.
Just kind of wanted to say a spoiler for Death of Gwen Stacy.
I mean, people should know by now.
Yeah, actually, we need to put a spoiler out there that a lot of people died in the 20th century. So if you don't know about all those 20th century deaths, be warned.
Are you still mad about that? Because I can feel some anger as you say it.
Oh yeah, I'm very bitter. I'm fanboy bitter. And it was written by he who shall not be named. So, yeah, it's a big deal. Yeah. So, yeah, I do have fanboy in me. So I was doing something else as a job and had a family, a young family. And I grew tired with what I was doing. And I thought, well, I took my little boy who was about 6 years old, and he was not happy to be trying to read. He didn't want to read the primer books that were in elementary school. And so I did what somebody did to me. We went to the comic book store and tried to get a comic of his favorite Saturday morning TV show. So I'm in the comic book store with him for the first time in a long time, and I'm looking at all these indie comics that are new to me. I'd missed out on them. And suddenly there was a bunch of them because that first wave of indie people had hit. The Cerebus, Bone, Distant Star, Star Child, that whole little brat pack, that first wave from like 1991 and 92. Even Neil Gaiman was in that brat pack because he was a new kid in town. So anyway, I saw that and I got inspired again. And a year later, after digging around, researching, I drew the first issue of Strangers in Paradise on my kitchen table. Took it to a local show, passed it around, which was hard because I'm very shy. But people gave me great feedback, and I met some DC editors, and they gave me good feedback. And I thought, well, okay, I think I can do this. And boom, after that I was unstoppable. I just was determined, and I got in.
So that's a very awesome origin story. So what I'm hearing, it started with Death of Gwen Stacy somehow. I don't know.
It started in high school and then was interrupted by Gwen Stacy's death, and I was in a mourning period for a very long time.
Naturally.
Still have it. Yeah.
And then I came back. So that's kind of the Phoenix story.
Right. Yeah, it really is. So Stranger in Paradise was your first kind of foray into it, and so it seems like reading all your stuff. It seems like you are always very focused on kick-ass female characters. Is that something that you were kind of always inspired to write about female characters more than male, or how is that kind of came about?
Yes, I'm just wired that way. I remember even when I was like under the age of 12, my early sketchbooks have drawings. I have the usual superhero guys, but I have an awful lot of drawings of superhero women. And there's even an old sketchbook with a drawing of a man, a guy and a girl having a relationship conversation. And it's like a 4-panel cartoon. And I don't know of many 8-year-old boys who draw cartoons like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I just was always working out that boyfriend-girlfriend dynamic and partnership and the shipping. We didn't call it shipping back then. They call it other stuff. But I was just always interested in it. And I thought it was interesting when you said that there was free shipping with something you were talking about that they could buy. That means so many different things now.
It's true.
That's true.
With free shipping.
I've never had a free ship.
So first of all, before I get to my question, I just really wanted to thank you for Strangers in Paradise. I've just inhaled it over the past 2 weeks, and I've gotten very emotional several times reading it because first of all, everyone's so real, and second of all, I've never seen anyone like me that looks like me in a comic book. And Francine, just thank you so much for her and for that very real relationship between her and Kachu. Like I was worried I was going to get on the show and cry talking to you about it because I'm floored and so in love, and just thank you.
Pleasure. I'm the one who starts crying when I talk about it because I get back into it. And then when I was finishing that series for the last week I was drawing it, it was a big deal around the house. Everybody gave me space. And for that whole week, I thought that I was coming down with something because my throat was sore all week. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't for like 3 or 4 days I realized I just had a lump in my throat the whole week. So I'm just a big softie when it comes to it. I was really into it.
I mean, being with them for over a decade, I can't even imagine what that's like to try to end something. That's a relationship you have with those characters. Most comic book writers don't get to write characters for that long, not in America anyways. And in the US, we don't have those long relationships with those characters between a writer and artist and characters. So
no, you don't. And for a writer like me, I'm writing for escapism. I'm not writing to impress with my clever sentences. I'm just writing escapism. And so the whole point of it for me is to actually be there every day. I loved it that my job was to get up every morning and draw Kachu and Francine.
Right.
And that's all I really wanted out of it. So bringing it to an end was, a challenge.
So I didn't even get to my question. I just, spilled out my heart for a second. But my question was, what do you like about comic books as a medium, as a storytelling medium? What do you? Because you're the artist, you're the writer, so you get so much involvement in this. What do you really enjoy as what do you like as a storytelling mechanism for comics? Like, why do you enjoy it that way? Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I actually thought about it before I got into it. My previous career that I gave up for this was as a television editor. So I was working with, motion pictures, which is great, but it's not the best medium. There's limitations. There are two big ones are, number one, if you want to make something for TV or film, you've got to talk 100 people into it. So a big collaboration, a lot of expense, a lot of realistic hurdles. But number two, if something is good or bad on the screen, you have to participate by playing it on the screen. Say something is wonderful and you want to see it again, you have to rewind and play it again. That pulls you right out. Or if it's awful and you're offended, in order to check and make sure you really are offended, you have to participate and go back and rewind it and voluntarily play it again to let it offend you again. And then the problem with novels on the other end was everything was descriptive. It's like you're laying in a bed comatose and somebody is describing their life to you. It's in your head, but you know, there's a process there that you're still removed from the subject, and you're hoping for the writer to be so good with the words that your imagination will take over. So the comic is the perfect thing in the middle between those two. The comic can get into your head with the words, but we also have the visuals, and the visuals stay still for you, so that say there's something on this page that is a blessing to you that makes you very happy. You can just leave the page open on your desk all day, and it makes you happy all day. Every time you even glance at it, it works. Or the other way around. If it's offensive, you leave it on the table, it's offensive all day long. So there's a great power in what you put visually on the page. And I have no budget, no logistical problems. I don't have to talk 100 people into it. If I want to draw a scene where every window in Manhattan blows out, I can draw that. I have the budget for that, you know. So I don't know, the freedom is incredible. So it really is just up to the cartoonist, the imagination, and then, you know, the skill level it isn't even in the top 5, because some of my favorite cartoons are stick figures, like Cyanide and Happiness, or a step up from that, Peanuts, you know. So I really think that great cartoonists are like world builders. They make great escape places for us, even if it's political commentary, and they're allowing you to go to a place where finally somebody's talking sense, or it's Monty Python. It's so ridiculous you can finally laugh at something that's very painful. So those things that's just in the comic medium. It's very cool.
Speaking of other mediums, we all read and loved Rachel Rising.
Yes.
But one of the things we kept talking about was how much we wish this were like a Netflix show or something we could binge, because, you know, sure, it's perfect, but we would love to see it come to life in that way. I know there was previous talk about that happening. Is that off the table now? Could it still happen?
It's on the table. It can happen. It's at a network, and they're developing it. So
fantastic.
I can't really say anything else without getting out ahead of them, you know. Rachel is at a network. Motor Girl is at a network. The Strangers in Paradise movie script is the whole big first draft that's going to be shown to a lot of people is done, and everybody that's read it loves it. And there's an Academy Award-winning actress who wants the lead role. So that's really going well. We have our funding and our whole team and everything. Team SIP. So those 3 have homes, and they're in development. I'll just get that out of the way right now.
Fantastic.
Beyond happy.
Do you get to have a big process in that? Like, do you have any part in like helping with making sure the casting's right? Like, do you get a big enough role to make sure it's like your babies are going to go to screen okay?
Yeah, I'm very protective. You know, I'm not a big fan of Hollywood size 2 actresses who all look alike. So every time I talk to people, they say, who do you envision? And I always say, probably no name you can think of, because I think the best actors working today are in New York or Toronto. So I like those talent areas, as opposed Hollywood's a different world. But I mean, they listen to me, but I don't, you know, I'm not the expert. I'm just an opinionated author. So I'll do what I can, but I know that everybody means well. And a lot of times somebody will say, okay, well, we're going to cast say George Clooney as Kachu. And,
I'd watch it.
And you think, there's no way they really missed that. This is not going to work. This is going to be a disaster. And then you see the movie, and doggone it if he doesn't pull it off. So
Yeah,
you never know.
Hey, but
I've seen it before.
when you're casting for Zoe in Rachel Rising, do keep me in mind, though.
Okay.
Like, I would love to play a 11-year-old girl. Like she's like, just the way she was talking, Maddie was talking about Francine. Zoe is like my avatar in all your work. I'm like, this is me. That's me.
Yeah, I tell you, you joke, but Zoe kind of came across because I was thinking about Mike Nichols, the director on Broadway. He was talking about an acting class exercise where, say, you get a little troupe of actors and you say, take some old-fashioned play that all those characters around the house, and you typecast it, and then all the actors pass your script one actor to the right, and now do the scene. So now you've got the big guy playing the mom, and the yard man's playing the little girl, and you play the scene straight. And let the actors do their thing. And it becomes very interesting that way, and everybody gets a new insight. Well, I was thinking about that with these horror movies that we all watched in the 80s. Mm-hmm. Everything's typecast, right? And I was thinking, why does it always have to be a big, demented guy with a leather mask on? Why can't it be a 10-year-old girl who is the baddest ass thing in town, And so I had this whole idea for Rachel Rising. So many movies kind of end with somebody dying and being buried in the woods and their story's over. But I wanted somebody whose story started there, and all the actors had passed their scripts one to the right. And Zoe was the serial killer in town and all that other stuff. And man, it was fun to work that way. Really, really fun. It was refreshing. Even if I said something corny, it came from the wrong mouth, so it was more interesting,
She was like, I don't recall all the things that everyone said, every character said, but every line that Zoe said, I remember that.
Wow.
Man, in the pun game.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Strong.
Like
So strong.
Yeah, she's like, I remember that. So how is it writing for your story that you wrote for the comic medium, but now you are converting it to TV or movies? How is that process? Like, is it different, or how does it work?
I feel like I have to be a little more responsible. In the comic, I might take a left turn in the story and have no fear, but when you write for screen, you need to think in terms of, does it really work? Is this really a great idea? Only your great ideas should be on the screen. Not the stuff you're just, I'll work it out later. So I feel a bigger responsibility in making sure that my story is tight, beginning, middle, and end to each episode, and to the overall character arcs, that there's somewhere to go and something to say. We went through a bunch of series in the 90s where people started off with great ideas and they never thought them through. They didn't have any way to carry the series or where the series was going to go. And then there were some series that I saw that were just brilliant, but they were based on the part of life that we can't see, that influences life. And you could tell that the writer didn't actually believe in anything. So we just had these pretty moments, but nothing meant anything. And then that series floundered. So I think in terms, you kind of have to have your head together to write for TV. You better know what you're doing, because the audience, you guys have seen everything I've seen, and we're all watching the same stuff. And when I go to Europe, everybody over there has watched everything we've watched. I mean, it's a big global market now. So even if you could fool somebody in Texas, you're not going to fool somebody in Indiana or Germany or France or, wherever. So it's a bigger audience. You got to have your act together. That's what I feel.
And do you see the difference between writing for TV versus movie?
I think TV is much harder, much more serious. A movie has so much money in it that they're just making formulas. So everything is a hero journey. And I don't think anybody over the age of 20 watches those anymore. I'm sick to death of them. So you either have, if you're going to watch an expensive movie, it's going to be a hero's journey. If you want to watch a story, then it's going to be indie, 10 million and under. So those are, of course, those are all unique. But in television, that's the place where everybody is doing all their best work right now, I think, in terms of like being brave with their storytelling, being brave with their characters, and a sense of consequences. If you have a movie with Tom Cruise in it, I bet you $1 he's going to make it all the way to the end, no matter what happens. But if you have a hit series with a star, there is no guarantee they're going to make it to the first commercial break. So that's the medium everybody wants to work in right now.
Yeah, I feel like Game of Thrones kind of changed that. I think since then, people are kind of opened up and decided that, oh, we can take this chances. And you're right, like, with TV, it's more different. Like, there's no way I can see Breaking Bad happen in a movie.
Mm-mm. No, and they would have. Well, the thing is, I mean, the TV series are expensive, but you can adjust as you go. The thing about the movie is you go away, you do it, and then what's done is done, and you spend $100 million, and you've got all these people that you owe money to now, and you have to hedge your bet. So it's like going into a gambling room, and if you know that you have a 50-50 chance of hitting black 8, you're going to do it with a $100 million bet, But if we can go in there and bet $100 at a time, we're going to try whatever number we feel, and try to find a new system. So it's just money. It's a money problem.
So earlier you mentioned that you were a fanboy, and I assume that you still are one. Is there anything that you're into right now? Like, what does Terry Moore fanboy about right now? Is it comics? Is it TV? Is it movies? Is it something else?
Well, I'm very loyal to the people that win my heart. So, like, I discovered Rumiko like 20 years ago, and she's still like a major icon for me. And I got really excited. I just came back from Angoulême in France, and next year Rumiko is their guest of honor.
Oh, yeah, she just won an award in France, right?
Yeah, only the second woman to ever win it at Angoulême. And this is only the second time I've ever heard that she will go out in public. I've only heard of her going out once before to San Diego years ago. And I sent somebody up to go get her autograph, and I have her autograph, which looks like a tornado, like that. So Rumiko, of course, is the world's greatest storyteller. Hergé with Tintin, and a lot of European artists, of course, and some other Japanese artists. But in America, who's a really good storyteller is Adam Hughes.
Yeah.
No, nobody gives him enough props for his storytelling. He puts a lot of work into it, and when he gets these occasional jobs where he's doing, 3 issues, that is really good stuff. And if you ever get a chance to talk with Adam, you realize he's super smart, and he's a big geek. He's seen everything, read everything. And so he's a lot of fun to talk to, and it's in his stories that way too. So he's a great storyteller who's kind of unsung. And besides the usual suspects, all the big name guys, they're out there. The really interesting people who have something unique to say, they're out there. I mentioned Cyanide and Happiness. That's my favorite online comic. I also think that Paige Braddock is a terrific storyteller with her series, Jane's World. Katie Cook is fantastic cartoonist, and I love her stuff. It's so endearing. Gosh, I could go on and on.
We love Katie Cook.
Keep going.
Yeah, that was my next question, actually, because we know you love badass ladies. Are there some badass lady comics, whether they're characters or creators, that you think we should be reading that aren't yours?
Yeah. Well, Katie and Paige, of course, right off the bat. Let's see. Amanda Connor. I love her work. And I know that she's mostly doing the drawing, but she has a lot of input too on stories. Like I worked with her once for a DC series, Birds of Prey. And she had a lot of input on the paraphernalia and how to change the wheelchair to bring it up to date, because the Segway stuff was just coming out. And so for the first time, we got her in a chair with gyros and stuff like that. And that was all Amanda. I mean, she's just a terrific designer. If she wasn't in comics, she could easily be at anybody's tech company designing things, or a visionary company. So
that's interesting. I've never heard that. I just always assume she's just an artist, and I guess I shouldn't assume that anyone is just anything. But
she never ever touts her own work. She never blows her own horn. Thank God she has Jimmy to do that for her. But yeah, she's super, super smart, great design ideas. So, and then just maybe she does the funniest, most irreverent convention sketches I've ever seen. Somebody will say, I want a sketch of Superman having a bathroom problem. And you can hear it getting passed around the artist alley. Everybody's laughing as it goes around, So she's very irreverent, very funny.
Yeah, I mean, her Harley Quinn is pretty much like, the only Harley Quinn I can stand. I can't stand that character. But when I read her New 52 run, that's when I was like, yeah, she's like,
and that's the one you get in the movie, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just designed so well. I mean, she thinks that through.
Right. And it actually gets talked about, because she actually says, like, at one point she changes her hairstyle all of a sudden, and then it's like, well, what's up with that? And it's like, well, no, I'm going cinematic. So it's actually incorporated. But yeah.
So you mentioned Birds of Prey, and we know you've written some stuff for Marvel as well. Is there like a Marvel or DC series you would want to be the main writer on if you could pick anyone?
Yeah, I've been asked this before, and I always give the same answer, so I'm going to stay loyal to my usual answer, which is Supergirl.
Nice.
Ooh, I would love for you to.
That would be
Supergirl.
amazing.
Okay, I have a rant about this. It's real short.
Let's do it.
Ooh, make it long if you want.
We love rants around
We do
here.
love it.
The problem is that she is just as strong as Superman. But for my entire lifetime, and I'm like 300 years old, if they put 3 big DC characters up on a poster, Supergirl wasn't in there. It might be Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. And Supergirl was always the sidekick for no realistic reason whatsoever. And then when she did get a series, it was a mess. They didn't know what to do with her. She had a lot of stuff off in space, and then they just finally killed her and then cloned her and all this weird stuff. And she's a different kind of alien. No, now they're all aliens. It just never found the right writer who would give her a long-term definition, who would take her over, put her in the modern age, and give her, which is what the kind of thing they credited Frank Miller with Batman. He remade Batman for the modern age, all the kids with attitude, and now they finally had a Batman they liked instead of Adam West. That never happened for Supergirl, where she could have relationships and a life in New York City, or have her own town, and complications in real life. I mean, you want to know what food she likes, and does she if she has to buy a car for her job, what is she, and she doesn't have to keep wearing that wig anymore. Surely there's another answer besides, all that stuff. I just thought it should be more thought through, So I kept pitching it. And when I was ending Strangers in Paradise, I was friends with the people at DC, because at that time, DC was still just an office in New York with about 20 people, and you could know them all. So I was talking to the editors and saying, I'm going to be available next year. I would love to do this. And the guy that was in charge at the time didn't know me from Adam, and he said, well, that's nice, but we got a team scheduled. And I said, okay, and then so it just never worked out. And now it's Warner Brothers and a theme park, and that ship has sailed. I will say that the closest I ever saw to the one I would like is a little short story written by Peter David back when they had the new one and the old one at the same time in the story. And I don't remember what story arc that was, but this was like 10, 15 years ago. And so they had the out-of-date Supergirl who was facing the new one with the redesigned costume. And the old one, it was so poignant because she didn't know what to do. She was out of place, and the new girl was couldn't relate. And finally, she had to go back to her dimension or whatever. I wish she had taken the rest of us with her.
If I could recommend anything, which number one, I would love for you to write Supergirl. Two, if in the event that never happens, we as a channel, I'm sure, I can speak for
I already know what you're going to say.
Yeah. Please read Supergirl Being Super. It's a 1-volume thing. It just came out last year. And I wish it was longer, but I guarantee that you would love it, because that's the kind of Supergirl story we all deserve, and the kind of writing we all deserve. And I'll never get more of it probably, but fingers crossed, I hope I do.
Okay, who wrote that?
It's written by Mariko Tamaki and Jola Jones draw it. So you would love that. Like everything you were talking about.
I don't know if you can see the cover, but the art's beautiful. The writing's amazing. It's everything.
Another one that's in the same thing I'm describing was Jimmy and Amanda's run on Power Girl for 1 year. Power Girl is a character that nobody is interested in, but then they got it for 1 year, and they turned her into a real person, and it was a really funny book, and it was really charming, and then they left, and boom, all the readers left immediately. It went back to being what it is.
I can attest to that. I did the same exact thing. I read it, and then I wanted to read other stuff. Then I'm like, what is this? No, thank you.
Yeah, I was just there for Amanda and Jimmy, and then I was out. But it was really good.
So how have you seen the Supergirl, the TV show? Are you a fan of it?
I did watch it until about the second season, and now everybody's an alien, and that's too much for me.
I can see that.
Somebody's got to be human and just run a hot dog stand. Come on.
So what I'm hearing from you is that you're a lot like us, where to me, my favorite thing about a comic is when they're doing regular things, because it makes me care more about the big events and the action, is if I get to see them, go shopping, or, what does Wonder Girl order when she goes to Starbucks? That's the kind of stuff that I like to see. It makes me care. So that's what I'm hearing from you.
Exactly. The more you know about somebody, the more you care. And you don't fall in love with somebody in the middle of the Super Bowl game. It's when you go to Starbucks and you see them do something that you find charming, or you just hang out with them, and it's those little moments. And capturing those is the whole fun of writing, recreating these magic moments of life between human beings. And I think in one way you could see a writer as somebody who is impatient for that next magic moment, so they just sit down and make them themselves, on paper. And every day you're hoping that you come up with something that sparks joy, and at the end of the day, you have this beautiful thing that didn't exist that morning, and it just makes you so happy to have it. This page of art or that scene that you wrote.
So talking about that, do you usually kind of hold on to a story that kind of get it percolate in your head for a very long time before you commit to a paper, or it's more of I know today I'm going to sit down in front of my workstation and just write for like 5 hours, 6 hours? Like, what's your creative process like?
You know what? It's exactly the same as what I did for tests. If you did tests in school or a Mensa test or whatever, there's not really any way to study or prepare for it. So you just kind of make sure that you're sharp and you think of the moment. You kind of just visualize yourself, in the world, in that place, mentally where you need to be. And then you dive in and you trust your natural ability to navigate. That's how I do it. I picture a scene like all of Strangers in Paradise was inspired by one moment where I was in a car and we went past, it was raining, and we went past a bus stop, and there was an attractive woman in the bus stop in the rain waiting for the bus. And I had never seen that before or since. You just don't see that. And it captured my imagination. And as we drove away, I was thinking, who in the world would she go sit in the rain at a bus stop and wait for a bus to go see? Who is that important in her life? And then I began imagining her life, and I was off. That was it. I really, what I was imagining was Francine.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, in the early run of Francine, where she just looks wonderful to me. And this guy is not treating her right, but she keeps showing up, trying to get it to work. And then you get the disaster moments. And then there's even a point where she's really hit rock bottom, and she's in the rain running from her car to the grocery store in the rain, and now she looks terrible. And now she runs into that ex-boyfriend with his rebound girlfriend.
Damn it, Freddie.
So, it's just visualizing the moments, that moment, like hearing the rain and feeling the empathy I would feel if I was right there. And then that's enough to get the scene. Once I'm there, I just kind of like go neutral, and I can just picture what she would say and what Freddie would say. And I just sit back and let it happen. And some writers describe their writing that way, that they're just in the room. They sit in the room and watch.
So you're writing first before you're drawing, or?
In my head, yeah. And I used to write out scripts, but then I would get a better idea when I started drawing, and all that script was gone. So now that I'm on a deadline, I can't waste the time. So what I'll do is I'll just take a notepad and draft out my scenes, my major scenes, and then I just dive in and be a cartoonist. Somebody described a cartoonist as a writer who thinks, artist who thinks. So you're just kind of writing as you draw.
So where in your process, you have a lot of quotes before issues in a lot of your books. Like, do you think of these beforehand? Do they just come to you during the story?
Both ways. Why I started doing that? So many people would tell me they would get the comic and then they would run out to the car and read it in the car, or they'd read it standing, waiting for the subway or whatever. And I'm thinking, no, because that's the least, you're distracted. It's not a good spot. And then I would stand there in the comic store and I'd watch them hand it to a newcomer, and they would open it and look at the first page and then just flip right past it. And I spent, like a day and a half on that page, and it was wasted. So I thought, I'll just start with this scene setter. The whole first page is just a scene setter, just to kind of like calm you down and get you laser focused. Okay, here's where we're going. Here's a little saying to kind of get you in the frame of mind. And that way, if you're standing up in your car, driving with your foot down the freeway while reading the comic, at least you have a page to kind of get into it. Oh, okay.
And then crash.
Yeah.
My next page. So all your work are black and white art for that. Is that by choice, or is there just not getting into coloring?
Well, everybody I liked was black and white when I was growing up. All the underground comics. So I always saw it as a viable option. Mm-hmm. And when I started, just after the Revolutionary War, it feels like a long time ago, there were a lot of black and white comics. So it was not a problem then. And it allows me to binge work on my book. And if I finish right now, I can send it off immediately to the printer. And I don't have to wait, on a colorist or somebody else somewhere else to do their thing. So when I was working on these tight deadlines, it really helped me out a lot. But also, I'm an artist. So to give my art to somebody else and have them change it was driving me crazy. Because everybody I could ever use was also doing superhero books, and they were used to doing modeling, like a bridge of a nose or cheekbones. And I'm a cartoonist. It's meant to be flat colored. And if you put that anatomy in there, it really showed all my drawing flaws, my asymmetrical things and problems. I'm thinking of my Wildstorm books now. So two things. I didn't want to do color after that. And I went back to class and learned how to fix my asymmetrical problems. It made me want to be a better cartoonist.
Yeah, I'm not usually one for black and white art, but I was actually telling my friend, his art is so good. It's almost as if it's in color. So
that's nice.
So I guess, I look at it, I feel like I can't picture them colored, because for some reason I feel like that would be so wrong. Your art, I feel like the way it is, it's just perfect.
The thing is I love art in color, but I really am a cartoonist. I see line, I don't see light. So if you see light, you paint. If you see line, you draw. And I'm a line person. And my art heroes go all the way back to the old newspaper days. Like at the end of the 19th century is when we started getting all these terrific black and white illustrators for newspapers, right? So I, as a 20-year-old falling in love with the art world, I fell in love with the Impressionists and the newspaper illustrators at the same time. And it was always both worlds for me. And then everybody through the 20th century, all the newspaper cartoonists, all the underground cartoonists, Robert Crumb and everybody. So to me, it was just, it was, of course I would do it. I just never even thought twice about it. And now I don't even think about it. But I feel sometimes like the only one left. So I don't know if I'm a dinosaur or it's certainly not cutting edge.
So another thing we talk about in this channel a lot is representation, and whether that be, women or LGBT or people of color or, representation of body styles. And I felt like, reading Rachel Rising and reading Strangers in Paradise, I've definitely seen a wide variety of people in your books, and a wide variety of showing two women in love is a big deal, and having a genuine relationship and not just kind of it's there, trust me, those moments we have in comics still today. What does representation mean to you in your comics, and why do you make the effort?
Because it's important. When I started Strangers in Paradise with its story, I was compelled, and I didn't think anybody would read it except people like me, whatever that is. And, so many people say, write what you know, but I made a point to write what I don't know, because I wanted to explore and find out, and to be in rooms that I'm not normally in and see what happens. I had no interest in me and everybody like me and what I had grown up around the guys and everything guys talk about. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go to the other room and see what's going on in terms of people and life. I don't know. It was just something I felt compelled to do. And then I was about a year and a half or 2 years into Strangers in Paradise, and I was starting to get this tremendous mail feedback in the mail letters from people of all walks of life, even priests, who were saying, this is just not something we ever thought we would, be interested in or be approving of, but we're reading the story and we really hope it works out for these two women. And it restored my faith in humanity, basically, because if you go out to social media, everything is a tough fight. But if you can connect with people one-on-one, like you would do with a book, you find that, of course, there are still, most people are wonderful. And most people have a lot of sympathy and empathy. Most people out there don't want to see you get hurt. They don't want to see you upset. So when they know that you're desperately in love and this really is affecting your happiness in your life, people want the best for you, And the story kind of opens these kind of lives and these experiences up to other people in a way that's non-threatening. Maybe they're not quite ready to watch a gay couple decorate their house on TV, but maybe if they read Strangers in Paradise and listen to the conversations that are just exactly like the ones you have in, their relationship, we all say the same things, then they finally get it, and that was the feedback I was getting over the years with Strangers in Paradise. I think it would have, if I had been a lesbian, I think I would have had a bigger career. But I'm glad that I am who I am, because it's so odd for me to do it, this story. And I think that needs to be the point, that it shouldn't have to be LGBT people always having to give the voice to that story. It should be all of us. We should all be able to write this story. There's no reason why none of us can't relate to love. I mean, it's relationship, it's human beings, it's love, and we all have the same basic needs. And that's really all I focused on throughout the story. The rest is details, like, okay, we're going to go down the street today and go to the coffee shop. But that was the point of the series. And if you're working on that level, everybody in the world can relate to it, no matter what their language is or where their environment is. You're just telling a story about human beings. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter what medium or what language you're in. It works for everybody.
Right. I was also wondering, while I was reading this and while listening to you talk, what the fans' reactions have been like to your stories, because I couldn't help but thinking while I was reading this, if this had come out right now, knowing how fandom is right now and with convention community and the internet, I feel like there would be so many people cosplaying from this and making their fan art and their fan fiction and talking about what these characters mean to them. What was the fans' reactions like? And what did it mean to them as the series progressed and as your other books progressed? What have you seen? What's stood out to you?
I think Kachuf had a very strong fan base. She's still iconic inside that story. And then Kachu became an icon at the time. And Francine became a terrific avatar for a lot of people that were working on relationships or didn't feel represented in comics by people drawing bad girls or pinup girls. So there was that, but there was also warnings and threats, like in the first 2 years. I got a nasty letter once or twice from people saying, "Don't you dare make this a story about David coming in and turning Kachu straight," with slippery words. Yeah.
Also, it's exciting to see two women that were bisexual and could be with both.
Well, back in the 30s and 40s, they used to have stories like that. Mm-hmm. Slap them around, snap out of it.
Right. I'll be here every day until you fall in love with me and you no longer love Francine.
Yeah, we call that stalking now.
Yeah, back then it was like a very romantic thing. A girl is sleeping over there, let's lay a kiss on her. She will wake up.
That's why like that Kachu gave him a hard time. She's like, fucking get over it. Like,
Yeah.
don't care.
Yeah, even into the 80s, they were making movies like that. So somebody would wander away and have a low point in their life and then come back. It's so unrealistic. It's just, it doesn't represent anybody alive today. But anyway, I got the letters because it was still, when that series was coming out, imagine these 6-week breaks between issues. So I do this cliffhanger where, somebody says, I'm going to jump off a cliff, and the world has to wait 6 weeks to find out, she's standing in the front yard. She's just saying that. So, the wait periods, there was once or twice where I wouldn't go out to a show or anything until the next issue came out because my ass was grass. My name was Mud. It was fun.
So you've mentioned a lot of series and creators that you like. Do you have a personal top 5 comics of all time?
Yeah. One I haven't even mentioned is Spirit of Wonder. It's just a beautiful story. Dark Horse published it. It's really quite popular in Japan. It came out a decade ago. I read the Dark Horse collection. Just the sweetest story I've ever read. I don't know why I find it so charming, the art and the story. There's not much to it, but it was just a really fun book to read. The Peanuts, anything that had Peanuts in it. The thing that I learned from Peanuts was world building. Like, everybody loves the Christmas special so much because you get to be their neighborhood is more fun than our neighborhood. And you just kind of want to be there as a kid. That's what he taught me. I'm trying not to look at my bookshelf right over there.
No,
You can.
You can.
We should be able to say the top 5 off
Wondering
my
what
head.
book it is behind you. They've been talking in the chat trying to figure out what you have behind you.
That's true. They've been guessing.
Okay. Hold on, I'll show you.
I love
We'll
to
see
watch
who's right.
guesses. Like, is it this?
Did you cut to commercial break?
We did it.
Very quick commercial break. And we're back.
Okay, I got this in Ungalim.
Oh, somebody guessed that.
Yep, somebody's right. Good job.
And I got it, of course I can't read it, but it's black and white pen art from this cartoonist, and apparently everybody over there knows who he is, and I don't, so I bought the book. I don't know, it just looks classic.
Yeah, looks good.
Ooh. Is there an English version of it yet?
What?
Is there an English version of it? Is it English?
No, there wasn't there. And I was at the publisher, but it was, it was at their booth and all that. Topi. Mosquito. So, very cool. I came back with about 4 books, and they were all big and heavy, and they were in my backpack, and so.
What are the other 3 books you got?
Like this, stuff that I've never seen, and good art,
So,
Do you want to see one more? I'll show you
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
gorgeous.
do it.
Absolutely gorgeous. I found this at Luca. Hold on.
I love this. I just want people to come and then just like show us what's on their shelf.
I know, right? Show us all your books. Show us your collection. Show us your collection video. Apparently it has been released in English, by the way. I know he's not here, but somebody said that.
Italian art? Okay. Thank you, Cycle Cleveland.
I love European arts though, guys. They're done.
It's so different, yeah.
Especially Black Sad. Oh my god. Oh my god. But it's also done by a Disney animator. He was a Disney animator before. But oof. I'm gonna go right back.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I got this in Luca, and I met the artist. This is his version of Wizard of Oz.
Whoa.
And it's the first time I've ever seen
Whoa.
Oh, wow.
Wait, is that an art?
Yeah.
My god, that's so detailed.
What a beautiful book. Here is The Cowardly Lion.
Oh.
Love it.
I just couldn't believe it. Just gorgeous. Here's The Poppy Field.
Wow.
I'm looking for one in particular. Oh, The Gate at the Emerald City.
Nice.
It's incredible.
Okay, where do you see The Wicked Witch? Ooh, I don't know who that is. There's Scarecrow.
Nice.
Oh my God. Now I'm afraid of the flying monkeys.
Oh.
Finally, flying monkeys that strike fear into your heart.
Yeah, they're not cute at all.
No, that's not cute. I don't want that guy on my back. Okay, I'm trying to show you the witch when she gets the water on her because that's why I bought the book. Good Lord, look at the Scarecrow. I mean, seriously. Wait, where are you?
I see it.
That's really,
Wow.
that's messed up.
That's an artist thinking for himself. That's like, oh, he saw everything we did and he just did it much, much better. There's the wizard.
Creepy.
How cool is that? That guy is creepy. That's the one that, you know, he needs to be a guy that you really did wish you hadn't met.
Yeah, he is creepy.
Okay, I haven't found the one I'm going to show you and then I'll stop this madness. Oh, there, okay. Okay, you want to see a witch melt?
Yes.
Yes.
Let's watch this.
Wait, speak again so we can see it.
This is the witch melting.
Oh, wow.
Ooh, I love it.
This is she's just kind of just I mean, my God. When I saw that picture, I thought, okay, I'm buying the book.
And then there's like also her leg with the red shoe and everything. Like it's
Oh yeah, you see Dorothy standing to one side?
Mm.
it
That-
actually captures the horror and everything.
It does, because when you get Dorothy there for reference, suddenly you're going, oh, crap. Okay, so who did this? We went all this trouble to do this. Gabrielle Del Otto.
Okay.
Gabrielle Del Otto.
Awesome.
I know that name. I feel like I know that name from something.
Everybody in Italy knows him. He's done a bunch of books.
Okay.
So there's like my French find, my Italy find.
Fantastic.
I would recommend another. I'm pretty sure you have heard about this. Black Sad.
Yeah, I have it.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's like another. But I pimp it up to everyone. Like someone asks, like, "Oh, what is one book you should read?" I'm like, "Black Sad. Here you go. Read it. Read it, everyone." That's like my number one. Like I've read probably like 100,000 books at this point. That's my number one. Like
Wow.
it never moves from there.
Do you mean that literally? You've read 100,000 at least?
Issues maybe.
Probably issues, yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
scientific fact.
But not like book wise. So another question that one of our listeners or viewers asked us is that is your books written in like shared universe? Because someone mentioned there's something about one character from Motor Girl is an aunt of someone else.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I have 4 series.
Mhm.
So there were Strangers. I have to go this way. Strangers in Paradise, Echo, Rachel Rising, Motor Girl. So Strangers in Paradise has this big cast. And then when I did Echo, I thought, well, this time, Strangers in Paradise happens in Texas and Hawaii and East Coast. And then I did Echo and I thought, well, this is going to happen in California. And I thought, well, there's no reason why it can't happen at the exact same time. And then, so I did. I have the Echo happens in California at the same time as Strangers in Paradise. And there are several Strangers in Paradise characters in Echo. It turns out that, there's a connection there, as if you're watching a family tree program, there's a connection. And then I did Rachel Rising, and there are two characters, two major characters from Strangers in Rachel. And there was quite a connection there. And Kachu's painting is in the home of one of the characters of Rachel Rising. Kachu's painting of Francine.
I remember that. I did see that one. Yes.
I don't remember if it's the one that Freddie was trying to bid with on Jet. But, in Rachel Rising, there's Jet is there. Jet worked at Kachu's gallery in Houston. So it's the same girl with her hair grown out.
Okay.
Huh.
Yeah. And then Motor Girl, the main character in Motor Girl is Francine's aunt, Libby, the one who in Strangers in Paradise was talking about the UFOs.
Huh.
That's the same Aunt Libby.
That's awesome.
So when you read Strangers in Paradise 25, you find that there is a big problem for Kachu now. You're cutting to current day Kachu and Francine.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a big problem, and the problem started in Echo.
Okay.
What happened in Echo is going to mess up Kachu's life. And so Kachu goes off looking for somebody that was in the original Strangers in Paradise. And while she's gone, Francine gets her Aunt Libby to come help with the babies, with the girls. And Aunt Libby has already finished her period with Motor Girl. Motor Girl is over. So Aunt Libby's available to babysit. So she goes out to their place in Santa Fe and babysits. And I'm telling you all this for a point. So when Aunt Libby needs help with the girls, she calls for Sam from Motor Girl to come help. And Sam comes help in Strangers in Paradise 25. And all of this comes together really well in the last issue, which comes out on Wednesday. Funny enough. And you actually get to see all of them zipper together. And they all have a huge problem, and they're going to have to work on it together to go forward.
Nice. So was this your plan all along to kind of bring it together, or it just kind of happened because you're like, well, I've been seeding this all these years, so...
When I saw that I had the opportunity to do this, and when I started Echo, the second series, I saw that I had the opportunity to, like, why not do this with all my series? So from then on, I always made them that way. And I got the idea from Robert Heinlein, the sci-fi writer. Robert Heinlein got, a third or halfway through his career, and he decided all his books were going to be in one shared universe. So he came up with this common denominator called Lazarus Long, this character who could regenerate, and he would show up in all these stories, and that was his golden thread. So I always loved the Heinlein verse, and I wanted to do a Terry verse. So I've been working on it ever since the second series.
I was just going to ask if it was called the Terryverse.
It is.
That was my next question. That was the universe name, Terryverse.
Yeah, Terryverse rolls off the tongue, whereas More World, it just kind of lays down and dies and poops.
Yeah, More World.
More World
That's
is not
hard.
good.
Terryverse.
That sounds like something you should have removed. Got a terrible More World.
So the other question that I had, like, I want to talk about Sam all day long. So where did that, like, that idea came from? Because, your Echo, like Strangers in Paradise is more about slice of life, relationship. Echo was all about a sci-fi kind of thing. But Motor Girl, it seems to be something so different, and until you get to the end, you're thinking it's one thing until you get to the last issue, then you realize, oh, everything as you read is completely different. So where's the inspiration for that came from?
The Wizard of Oz.
Interesting.
It's the Wizard of Oz with a Iraqi war veteran with PTSD. That's it. It started off because I had drawn a pinup sketch of a girl with a gorilla, and my friend Brian Miller said, if you put a gorilla in a comic book, everybody buys it. It's just a winner.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about a gorilla story, and at the time I was also reading so much about the veterans that were coming back with PTSD. For a couple of years there, it was intense, and so this was on my mind. And I just kind of took this whole, what started off as just a girl living in Arizona who wants to restore an old motorcycle and race it. That was my original idea. It became a war veteran with issues. And once I kind of got that in my head, I got a lot more serious about it. Doing a story about, that's fine if you want to do a story about somebody rebuilding an old motorcycle and racing it, but it sounds like, an old Disney movie. And thinking about, PTSD, it's a very topical, it's very current. It's something that we need to deal with and recognize. And I don't know, it just kind of grabbed me. And once I was there mentally, I couldn't let it go. I had to do it. That's how it happens. It just kind of, there's something that compels you, and you can't not do it. If you can put it off, then it's not the right one.
Right. To me, like we don't hear a lot of stories about female veterans. So for me, this was because I do a review series for like Kick-Ass Ladies, and there is not a lot of stories with female veterans. And if it is, like, it's always kind of goes into a weird place that I don't feel like, it's kind of very difficult to deal, or it's not difficult enough. But this seems like it hit the perfect rhythm of like her service and then what she brought back and how she's dealing with that. Something that's not talked about even with male veterans. So thank you for that.
Well, yeah, I was really captivated by the idea of, this works on both sides, the daughters and the sons who have a military dad, career military, and then she lost her dad, and so she was born into a Marine family, and there was no question. She went into the Marines, and now it was really important to show that she was so strong and overqualified for anything in normal life, because you needed to understand how brave somebody like that is. And it's not a matter of courage and lack of courage in these issues. It's a matter of sending our bravest people to go do things that are not normal, not human, and they see inhuman things, and they have to live in a hostile environment. And then coming back and dropping them in the middle of a grocery store is, the Hurt Locker scene. It's just bizarre. So I enjoyed, I want to say I enjoyed it, but I also made sure to show that when we find Samantha in the junkyard and in Arizona, and she's here now trying to get this processed. She's the strongest one in the room. She's the bravest one in the room. And I thought I had a really fun time showing like these two Vegas hitmen coming to kidnap her. Something that all the rest of us would go down, and then it's just nothing for her. Boom. She takes care of the threat, and she's going, dude, what are you doing?
Right.
She's so overqualified for normal threats and challenges that it shows you just how strong and how serious this stuff that they're dealing with is. These soldiers who have been through stuff we cannot even imagine. I haven't been over there. I can't even imagine. So I just wanted to be sure to do a story that treated this with the respect that it's due on both sides of the gender. And I made sure that the characters in the story, when they found out she was a veteran, you would notice that their attitude would change.
Right.
Like especially the hitmen. When they find out she's a veteran, they actually apologize for harassing her. And of course, the only one who doesn't is the Hitler megamind, bad guy. So, but he's our little Hitler. So,
Right.
It was. I felt very serious about what I was doing, but at the same time, I really got a kick out of being able to do the fun stuff and the tongue-in-cheek stuff. So, I don't think I could have written a story like that when I was 21. You just have to wait until later when you get more sentimental and start really feeling for other people. Like when you're 21 and somebody describes their bad day, you go, hey, tough it out, dude. Mm-hmm. When you're 40, somebody describes their bad day, you can relate. And so it just chokes you up and you wish the best for them, and so I think you write that way too. You tend to be, and then I guess someday when I'm 81, I'll cry at a moment's notice and everything will be sappy. And there was a man walking through a field. Oh my God!
And I think you need a certain level of maturity to actually appreciate certain stories, because I don't think I would have appreciated Motor Girl as I'm doing now if I read it at 21 when I was a full-blown psychopath. Now I'm a medium psychopath.
Now I'm totally okay with my psychopathy.
Yeah, I mean, so you kind of have to need a little bit of maturity to write and to appreciate the work that. And
that's not a slam. I mean, it's not that we are immature. It's chemistry. They proved that in guys, there's an enzyme that helps with sense of consequence, and it doesn't even show up in guys until they're 27 or 28, which is why you see the young athletes doing crazy stuff, and the 35-year-old has to retire because he knows better.
So we also had a question, and this is more so, and maybe it's not something you can help us out with or not. So our community that we come from and kind of what we started with is because we all gathered together because we collect comic books and collected editions of comic books. And as I'm sure you're aware, your books are so popular that some of them are out of print, which is unfortunate for me, the new reader.
Who wants one of these, right?
I want that so bad. So do you know if there are any plans for any of these out-of-print books to be re-released or
re-released in premium hardcover package? We don't take those trade paperbacks. We're talking about premium hardcover.
The expensive stuff.
The expensive stuff. Yeah, and we're willing to pay for it. So.
Good. That's what it takes. I have to know that if we print like 1,500 hardbacks, that we can sell them within 2 months and pay off the printing bill, which is somewhere, the printing bill is like about $3 billion for those 1,500 books. So that's the deal. And it's been a while. You know what? Okay, you're actually talking to the source, though. So you have a lot of clout right now.
Good.
So what I'm going to do is, I've talked to Robin about it already because she's getting a lot of requests. Mm-hmm. And her plan is that if we can get if the shows will go on air, if any of them hit, then that's the one that we can reprint the big books on, because we'll finally get enough people to order them that we can pay for the printing.
Right.
Makes sense.
Like printing the hardcover Strangers in Paradise Omnibus is $75,000
Man.
Or what? 1,500.
for 1,500 hardcovers of just the 2-book series. It was, I think it was even more than that for the 3-book hardcover, the first one. But like the hardcover Rachel Rising, that wasn't that much. It was more like $40,000 or so. So, and I don't do Kickstarters or anything, so we just have to know that I can blast it out on social media. Okay, we're going to come up with this book, and you can pre-order. And if we get, say like 900 pre-orders, it pays for the print run, and then we have 500 left to sell at shows and stuff.
Well,
That's
we'll
how it works.
be your street team, so you can always let us know. We'll shoot it through the Omnibus Collectors group, and
Right.
Speaking of omnibuses, pre-orders are coming up soon, right? For Strangers in Paradise 25.
Exactly.
When's that happening?
Exact same deal. Yeah. There's going to be a hardcover and a softcover through Diamond, through the stores. And then there's going to be the Abstract Studio version, the private one, with no price or ISBN number on it. And it'll only sell for $5 more. But we put a print in there and other stuff. And you can only get it through our website. And if you pre-order, the pre-orders, if we get enough of them, they pay for the printing and we're good. So that's why we promote those like a good month before everything comes out, trying to get people to go to it and sign up for it. And it's worked for us every time. So we have tremendous support on that. I'm really grateful.
Good.
I'm looking at them now.
Yay! So you'll be at C2E2, right? I was creeping on your website. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
We'll be there creeping on you in live.
Well, good, because I need somebody to talk to, and now I know you guys, so good. You'll be the only people I know in Chicago.
Great. Well, let us know if you want to go out to get some lunch or coffee or anything. We'll be there.
Yes, and I'm very expensive to feed, so yeah, absolutely.
We'll expense that. We'll expense that. Speaking of collected editions, though, so one of the things that we have seen that now there is newer readers coming on, and most of them are from, like, a lot of them, myself included, gotten into the comic book because of comic book movies, and because of now we have this whole binging culture that we like everything to be presented to us at once, and people are a lot more looking into collected editions versus like single comic. Like during your time in comic book industry, do you see that being something different, or you still think that there is enough people that still going for single issues, or how do you think that's changing the comic book landscape?
It wants to badly, but it has there's a problem with finding a business model that works, an income model. For a guy like me, I'm paying the rent off the monthly. I call it monthly, but it's really every 6 weeks for me. But that periodical comic pays my rent. And then at the end of the year, I get a trade. And then the orders for the trade are only a fraction of what that periodical made all year. It's like a little bonus, like a little Christmas bonus for me. So my annual income is really off that periodical. If by now something had developed where we were all releasing our periodicals online somehow and getting our money that way in some way that was as good or better, then I'd follow the crowd. But I've been on the internet since day one, and nobody has ever been able to find a way to get a really good business model for all of us. There are, of course, it was only just a few short years ago that ebook authors started to be able to make a living. And I've noticed that, of course, we have some very noteworthy comics that are online comics only. But a lot of them are free and still rely on merchandising and collections to generate income. So it's an income model problem. I don't know how to fix it. But I've always wondered, the truth of the matter is that the page that I draw today, it looks so much better on my screen than it does on that little paper book. So I'm totally happy with my work going straight to screen. And I make a page a day. Why can't I just post a page every night and you're reading a page a day as I make them? Because I'm not going back and re-editing them anyway until I get to the big collection. But I'm not scared to do that. I would post a page every day online if I could. But there's no model for income for that. I have to, I have about $7 billion a month bills that I have to pay. So,
what are you buying with $7 billion?
Snacks.
Snacks.
Stuff. I need all that stuff.
Snacks. Okay. What are these snacks? Bring some on C2E2.
Yeah, definitely. My backpack will be full of it. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm all for it. I'm all for something changing. It would be great if we led the way, if our industry would come up with its own answer and not find it from somebody else. Authors wanting to put out a chapter online every time they write it that goes all the way back to Stephen King. But comic artists are the one people who can do it. So I don't know. Maybe we need like a 18-year-old to figure this out for us. If he would take a break from cracking into the IRS and spend one day coming up with this answer for us, I'd love it. Thank you.
Mm. Yeah, I think because the reason we mentioned that, especially with Marvel, it happens a lot that they cancel their series because the single issues are not selling as well. However, the people they're trying to market that to is waiting for the trade paperback, because especially for kids, now it's a single issue is like $4 compared to how it was 25 cents back in Revolutionary War era. So that's kind of it doesn't sell as much. However, when the trade paperbacks come, it's all of a sudden #1 in Amazon bestseller list. Mm-hmm. But by then, the issues have the series has been canceled. So yes. That's one of the reason it's just kind of we ask question that what you guys insiders are thinking.
That syndrome started kind of with the big indie movement in the 80s because they had super low print runs. People could never find them when they discovered them after release. Mm-hmm. Like if you suddenly get into that black and white indie comic and you're a year late, those issues were impossible. It was impossible to find Strangers in Paradise 1 through 3 a year after they came out. So that's what started the little trade format stuff. And now, of course, there was trade waiting, and now there's omnibus waiting. So I actually have 3 different groups of book buyers. There's people that don't even bother with the trades. They wait for the omnibus. So I'm up into...
You're talking about...
Yeah, it's all of us.
I'm not to that point. Sitting in front of a lot of omnibuses.
And, how can you blame? I mean, that's just how it is. And thank God I can still sell periodicals and still sell trades because... if it was only omnibuses, I mean, like when I sell an omnibus, say, I may make on all of them, all the omnibus that I come out, I may make say $8,000. Huh. Imagine if that's the only book I put out all year and I'm making $8,000 a year. Mm. Because they're so expensive to print, my overhead is huge because I'm doing low print runs. So if DC's putting $1 into a book that they sell for $25, I'm having to put $18 into a book that sells for $25. So right. My margin is awful because of low print runs.
So the best way that we can support artists and writers would be to buy the trades and then to still, deal with our habit, sell those trades to somebody else, and then buy the omnibus also. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, you know what we need? Instead of artists saying, "Oh, please just buy everything I do," we need to come up with some sort of ecosystem where you can buy the first one and you can flip it to the next one to a way that's to your advantage, everybody's advantage, and then flip it to the final version that's to everybody's advantage. We need to come up with some sort of new, it takes a village type thing where we're all contributing to the food supply. This is getting into real Apple think tank getaway stuff. If you guys would work on that for me, that'd be great.
We're gonna work on that. We'll head to Shark Tank. It'll be good.
Yeah.
I mean, if we had the income for it, I think we would contribute. I know I myself would have contributed as much, but it's just the whole point of well, we know that eventually the trade or the omnibus will come out. So yeah. So one thing for sure, though, and this is kind of going a little bit political, that if it has a female superhero on it, you are good with trade. Forget that.
That's true. We'll keep up with it regardless.
Yeah.
I can't wait that long also either. So usually I'll give in. And so Fariha picked up Strangers in Paradise for Kristan and I because it was hard to find. But I know I'm not going to be able to read it yet. So I bought a bunch of it on Comixology because I was like, I can't wait. I have to finish this now.
Okay,
So-
that's my best recommendation is to read it on Comixology when it comes out. It's just a convenient platform. Then you can read it on your phone and be done and gone. And then at the end of the year, you can buy the book for yourself if you like it. So that's probably the most modern way to do it right now, I think.
Yeah, I got 2 sets of it that I got from the local comic book store. They were having a 60% off sale. So I hope they paid your portion of it. I don't know what was left after that.
I'll have to look into that and see if we sold a book last year and if you got it.
No, this was a soft cover edition, so it's from Diamond, I guess. It's through Diamond, but anyway.
Yeah, that's a whole other business, and I used to do it in the first year or so, and now Robin has been doing it ever since. My wife, she is very down to earth and really organized, and so she's the business mogul. I'm the creative flake.
Speaking of Robin, one of our listener also asked a question because I think one time he was talking to her while you were away on something, and he asked to say hi to her first, and also asked that in terms of your creative, does she have a lot of creative input in your books or in your stories, or it's more of she's the money person, you are the writer person?
For the most part, it's we stay on our turf, but her desk is right next to my drawing table. So it's obviously we talk and she pretty much lets me make the whole issue, and then she'll read it and edit it for mistakes and say, well, your continuity is off on this and this. Once in a while, she'll say, that's too far, Usually if somebody's having angry and having a rant, like there was one time when, I don't know if you remember this, but one time Kachu went and stayed with Casey, and Francine went to visit them and found Kachu over at Casey's house and was not happy. After Francine stormed off, Kachu has this meltdown and just curses for 2 pages straight. Well, I couldn't actually write in English all that because I'll never sell that copy of that little comic. So I looked it all up and I put it all in French because I had written it all out in English to begin with. And Robin said, no way. And so I looked up the worst things you could possibly say in French, and her whole rant is in French in the comic, and I got away with it. So, and funny enough, I've never heard a single French person complain about it. They just took it in stride. Well, of course you would say that.
So.
Guess it works.
I guess it works. I did the same thing in David's story when he was in the little street gang, and they were saying terrible things. And I looked it all up in Japanese, and all the bad stuff is in Japanese. So it was just a way to get around the American market and still get it in there. They're still able to vent and without saying, "Gosh darn, I'm so angry."
Who does that?
That really ticks me off right there.
Darn it.
I just really appreciate the Southern way that was said. That was great.
So what are the comics that you're currently following, or any series that you're currently reading?
Yeah, I'm reading one that hasn't actually finished coming out yet. And I'm going to tease you with this because you can't read it yet. It's Jeff Smith's new series, Tukey. It's awesome. He put some of Tukey out 2 or 3 years ago, and it was something that it's such a deep story that he started working on it and making a little first chapter book before he was ready to. So he pulled it back, and he spent the last 2 years rewriting and drawing it. And he showed me what he's got so far. I would say he's like 80% done. It's just the most beautiful thing. It's just incredible. You know, you get this, it's so amazing. These guys like Jeff who moved the earth with their book, and then they go away, and you think they're done, and you find out he's been working on something for 5 years, and he comes back with it, and he's going to move the earth again. I mean, it's going to be huge. So it's just an amazing thing to watch. That's my favorite new series. Tukey, watch for it. I hope it comes out later this year. Maybe, I don't know. You have to talk to him.
He's amazing.
So have you read Spider-Man since then?
I've looked at a few, but I have never fallen in love with him again. I like Spider-Man. The reason why I took Spider-Man Loves Mary Jane that time I wrote that was because it was all those people in high school, and it was the cast I like, with Flash and Liz and Gwen, of course. And it was back in the day when Spider-Man's whole challenge was happening in Queens and Manhattan. And it was somebody with a mechanical tail robbing a jewelry store, you know, instead of like save the planet. So I liked Spider-Man on micro scale, where he's in his socks climbing on his bedroom ceiling and waiting for dinner to finish being made downstairs. And so I like that Spider-Man. The Spider-Man that's fighting all the adults and getting into the political wars and all that. You know, at the time I was writing that Spider-Man Loves Mary Jane, I was also writing Runaways. And they're on the other coast, but they're in the same time frame. And they had a time machine called the Frog. And I pitched that we should get the Runaways in the time machine to go back to New York for a second or third time and get Spider-Man and go back to the Brooklyn Bridge and save Gwen Stacy before she falls. And just restart from there and show that everything that happened with Mary Jane and everything was an alternate universe. It was, you know, Bobby in the shower, Dallas, and Gwen's back. And he who shall not be named is never allowed back on the Marvel building. So,
Just keep pitching it. Keep changing the crew.
I really love your
Did you
Spider-Man fan fiction you just came up with.
Did you tell this to them already? Did you give them the idea?
I gave them the idea. I said, let's do this. And they said, at the time, they said no.
Well, now they're going to use it and not going to pay you royalty.
No, that's right. That happened to me one other time. Somebody at Wizard Magazine asked me, if you were going to do, what's your best idea for a story that you would do on somebody else's book for, say, the X-Men? And I said, you know what? I would have the X-Men go to an island where they get affected by the water and they all turn into 6-year-olds. And they have to do the whole adventure as 6-year-olds. And a year later, that story came out. So I learned not to give stories away.
Yeah.
But I want the Gwen Stacy story so bad.
Then you wanted this to happen.
You're putting it in the air.
Take it. Do it.
Take it. Well, now she's back as Spider Gwen and whatnot. She's there, like, there's like all different versions of her. There's also a version of her as a Gwen Pool, which is really good. I really recommend picking that up. But that's not Gwen Stacy though. But everyone confuses her.
See, I mean, we're back to Harrison Ford playing Zoe, right? I mean, okay.
I mean, that's perfect casting.
Sure, do your version. That's okay.
Yeah. So what are some of the advice would you give people who are following your footsteps or coming up and coming in comic industry?
It appears the people I see that are doing well develop an online audience first. There's some artists that I follow who have just massive online audiences now, and they don't need anything else. They have Livy Kemp. She's in England, and she draws line drawings, these great big murals, and they were being exhibited around London. So she's a London artist, but she's so good on her social media about posting. She has over 1 million followers. So when Livy wants to make a book, boom, that's it for the year. And there's another girl in the Netherlands called Lois B. And she has, I think, 2 million followers on Instagram. And she's a Disney character designer who just took off. And now when she did she put out a book last year and one before. I mean, they're hugely successful. Sales I can never even comprehend. They did that online, completely solely off of Instagram and Twitter and all that. So if I was 18, I would focus on posting images that are just cannot be ignored, and just keep at it every single day and let people into your working process. People love to see artists at work. The most popular videos I've ever posted have been just me at work on a page, Nobody cares what I had for lunch or what weird thing I saw down the street. They want to see the art, So I think finally the internet is strong enough to support individuals if they're really unique and they're okay with sharing their work online. And you don't make money off Instagram, but if you get 1.5 million people following you and you say, oh, look, I'm going to publish an art book, guess how many sales you have? So there's your annual income right there.
How would you, what advice would you give for just writers? Like people,
Oh man, that's tough.
Mm.
Of course, the problem with the thing about art is the minute you look at it, you know if you like it or not. With writing, you have to participate. I need your time. And that's the one thing nobody wants to give anymore, We're getting more AD and D by the year.
What now?
AD and D. I added an and. It's the A and the D and the D. Yeah, so the writing is tough. And I think what I've seen is writers tend to go ahead and make the work first, all of it, like write the entire book. And then they really need the blogs. All ebook authors have strong blogs, from Neil Gaiman to Janet Ivanovich to, whoever. And the most successful reader network I've ever seen is actually either on YouTube podcasts or at the librarian conventions. So the key is not the bookstores, but the libraries. I always thought libraries were at the bottom of the food chain, but they're at the front of the food chain because the staff of libraries are actual genuine book lovers. They read everything, and all the key librarians blog, and all the other librarians in the country read each other's blogs. So the networking is like a terrific ant society. I mean, I was amazed. Robin and I spent 5 years on the ALA circuit, the American Library Association circuit, and we were blown away by these people. They're so influential, they even influence how the Library of Congress categorized trade paperbacks. Those representatives were at a BEA or ALA meeting asking their advice and what number should we assign them and how should we do this. So the librarians, that world is get a good review, go to an ALA, set up a booth, pass it out. They'll all take a copy, let them read it, blog about it, and whatever they love, that's who people, let's say the New York Times book reviews are reading. Those people are at every ALA meeting too, and then the word spreads. And so you went straight to the core of the real network. Instead of having to knock off readers one at a time out in the world, you go to the people, do the waterfall effect. You talk to one key librarian for the city of Houston, and you've sold 200 books into every library in Houston. Same with every major city. And they're all there at their ALAs and their state library conventions and all that, you know. And the booths are available. So, and you don't need HarperCollins to do that. You know, you print it yourself, you go there with 100 copies, hand them all out, let it do its magic.
I am just blown away by the fact that those not unsuspecting librarians are holding that much power, sitting there behind their table.
Robin and I were blown away. And it's because they're doing basically what you're doing. They're communicating with each other in the world. That communication thing. The bookstore people don't. There's like only 5 major book chain buyers. So make 2 of those mad at you and you've cut in your sales, you know, win them all 5 over and now you can be in the bookstore chains. But even if you got into every Barnes and Noble in the world, that just because you got on the shelf doesn't mean you're going to sell it. It needs all that push. And that's the only thing anybody ever wants out of a publishing contract. Nobody needs a publisher to publish a book. I can do it. What you need is the push and the advertising and all that and the point of sale. That's exactly what the librarians do. Have you ever gone into a library and asked for recommendations on something? They know, right? So they're blogging, they're networking at the conventions, and they're, I mean, it's just absolutely state of the art. Don't underestimate them. And I think, you know, they're people that are new to the book world don't realize it. It takes them a while to figure that out. And I only know it because I self-published, and I finally went and got on their circuit for 5 years and saw it for myself. And I don't hear enough authors saying it. You know, like even when I went, and this was like 7 years ago when I started it, people like Neil Gaiman and Jeff Smith had already been there, conquered that world, won all their awards, and moved on. I mean, it was just, I was way behind the curve. And I still don't hear other people talking about it. They should.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the first time I've heard about it. But it's nice to hear, though, because I have so many friends who are librarians. It makes sense. You know, it's definitely an untapped network as far as we know. So it's good to hear that it's got its place.
You know, the people at books, there can be people in bookstores that work there just because they need a job. But anybody who works in a library is there because they love books. Mm-hmm. And the librarians, they've read everything we've read, and they're really interested. And they certainly know graphic novels now. When I started, they were still kind of like, but boy, it's not anymore. They know. And they've been having panels about it for years at their shows, and they have their experts, and just the communication is what you would hope for. All you have to do is get in that buzz list, and you'll feel it.
Well, kids, be kind to your librarians. That's the day. Well, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us, and it was lovely, and we got so much insight than we ever hoped for. So we're looking forward to all the shows that are coming out from you, and also the new books. Knowing
you.
that Samantha's in Stranger's Paradise will really make me want to pick that up now. For giving that to us. And Kristan, Maddie, do you want to?
Yeah, just thank you so much. It's been wonderful. And I'm super excited to talk to you again in person in March at C2E2. Expect to see me there at your table with copies of all your books, asking you to sign them for me, and probably crying. I just cry all the time, so it's very likely.
If you start crying, then I'll cry, and then Robin will start crying, and oh man.
And I'll just look at all
great.
We'll see if we can get the whole aisle to cry.
Yeah.
Best con ever. Cry con.
Yeah.
Big con hug. Well, thank you guys. You've been very nice to me, and thank you for helping me talk about the books to the world, and it really makes a difference. So I wish you well. I'll see you in C2E2.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
And if you want to know more about Terry Moore's all the lovely works that we talked about, you can go to instocktrades.com, where you can get all the publishers, Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, and Image for up to 42% off, and all of Terry's work up to 30% off. So go to instocktrades.com for all your collected editions needs. Thank you so much, Terry, for joining us, and we will see you all on next Sunday. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.